If the COVID and Ukraine crises have taught us one thing, it is that international organizations are useless in a crisis. The United Nations has been unable to fulfill its primary function of stopping war. The World Trade Organization has been unable to protect world trade. Instead, sanctions have been applied against Russia. And the European Court of Human Rights was unable to protect even the most basic human rights against the onslaught of restrictions imposed since 2020, supposedly to fight the virus. So, if these international organizations cannot do what they were set up to do, what is the point of them? Now, in the wake of COVID, states around the world are planning to give even more power to an international organization. They are drawing up a new treaty which would give the World Health Organization special powers in any future pandemic. A draft text should be published in August, but it is already obvious what the goal is. It's to engineer a great reset, a world government based on climate hysteria and social control. So, apart from being useless, international organizations are also undemocratic. The World Health Organization is not elected and it cannot be held to account. Yet it is proposed that it should decide and direct world policy on health. There's no citizen input into this new treaty, and you and I have nothing to say. Instead, the unelected European Commission is negotiating on behalf of the EU, even though Brussels has no power over health policies. So, bureaucrats will once again be talking to bureaucrats about how to create more bureaucracy. Indeed, the World Health Organization is not even a proper international organization, but instead a semi-privately funded agency whose biggest source of income is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, plus other private bodies like the Gavi Alliance, which Gates also funds. Now, this is the same Bill Gates who said that his investments in vaccines are the best investments he's ever made. He has made far more out of vaccines than out of Microsoft. And it is difficult to think of a more flagrant conflict of interest than to give a Gates-funded UN agency the power to enforce vaccines sold by, you guessed it, Bill Gates. But this is a textbook case of how power is drained away from individuals, families, and nations into obscure offices, themselves subject to plutocratic influence, destroying democracy, downgrading liberty, and reducing the variety of human life to the dull uniformity of a Soviet-style world planning agency. In the existing United Nations, of which the World Health Organization is a part, officials are allowed, encouraged even, to campaign for more UN power in the areas they work in. And this means that the UN, like the European Commission, is a one-way conveyor belt, inexorably sucking freedom and accountability out of the democratic domain and into the dark corridors of power, where these core values are smothered to death. Now, we are constantly being told about the virtues of diversity, but what about diversity in political choice? What was so dangerous about the response to COVID was precisely that governments all copied each other and did exactly the same thing. Any government which tried a different approach was ridiculed and berated. But if we forget the value of individual and collective freedom, we are doomed. Liberty is not dangerous, as people have been taught to believe since COVID. Liberty is a public good which should be promoted and cherished because it is a source of inventiveness and vitality. So instead of being given new powers, the World Health Organization, like so many other UN agencies, should instead simply be closed down.